Well, thanks so much, Heidi, for doing this.
Oh, you're welcome.
Really nice of you. And even more so, thank you so much for your support and for GM support all these years. It's really been meaningful, obviously, for our kids. So thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
So I thought I would start by actually talking about what you do, and maybe you could share the philosophy that you and GM come with in terms of all the good you do in our community, and then we could kind of flow into how the Math Corps fits into that. But but first, GM does so many things. What drives it, and what's the essence of it?
I think that General Motors has a real commitment to community, whether it's our plant communities or it's our hometown community of Detroit, which we've been in for over 110 years. There is so much opportunity for folks to step in and offer help in the community. For us, we focus a lot on education. We focus on workforce development in Detroit. We focus on the arts. Things that draw people into the city that we can assist with, but really our key focus is a lot around education. So for us, Math Corps fits in very nicely when we talk about making great impact into students' lives and allowing for access. Math Corps does a great job.
How long have you been working in this area?
So I've worked with General Motors for 22 years now, but in corporate giving and philanthropy, maybe within the last 7 years, focusing first on community outreach, which was around our volunteerism and engagement and how we get employees engaged in communities. We're a very old company, but we really didn't have a way to track and manage and assist people on finding opportunities and kind of aligning what our people do in the communities with GM's key focus areas. So we kind of launched community outreach, or Team GM Cares, to get that going. And then 4 years ago now, we folded in our giving of dollars, our philanthropic and our corporate giving into that. So now we're just one group within General Motors called Corporate Giving that focuses on our giving of our time and giving of our dollars. And so we've been on a journey over the last couple of years, and it's kind of been fun to be a part of something new within the company as we wound a foundation down, brought up the volunteering, brought in corporate giving, and married it all together so that all of our giving is in one place.
Yeah. So, when people think about the Math Corps, depending on what you know about it, I think you can come from different angles. So certainly on the face of it, it's a STEM program. It's the Math Corps. It's about math. And you would think that, a partnership with General Motors makes, total sense. We're going to produce engineers and scientists and maybe a few mathematicians. So that seems like, yeah, okay, that's right. But I think when you know the Math Corps a little bit more deeply, you understand there's much more to it than just being a STEM program. And I'm wondering, at first, and I know you've seen the program, so I'll get to that in a little bit, but just at first, what drew you to the Math Corps on paper? Was it simply this was a math program, or did you, before you even visited, did you come to learn about the program at that time?
I think what drew me or us to the program when we first kind of looked at it and heard about it was a little bit of more of a holistic approach to the student. We do a lot of work with our GM Student Corps program, which is in high schools, where we, focus on 10 high school students partnered with GM retirees and a college mentor to go do good in their communities. And we learned through that program that, you know, you have to come with the students at lots of different levels of where they are and what they know and how to build on the program. And there's a lot of emotion in that, right? There's a lot of education and experience and things that you have to deal with before you can even get to being able to learn and to be engaged and to be focused and settle some of those basic needs. So for us, when we look at Math Corps kind of lifts up those same ideas. It's a program that might start with math but ends with love, right? That there's this relationship that is talked about that you might be there to teach math, but you're also there to support emotional and mental and the heart of the program. And so we saw some of what we were trying to achieve, that Math Corps on paper was working towards that and already kind of had that. But it wasn't until you get to see the program that you really see how all those little pieces come together and the magic that you make happen in Math Corps.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. So, okay, so, you know, so you guys were wonderful and came, you know, came to our support. And then you came to see the program. So when you actually saw the program, and of course, when we talk about seeing the program, we mean seeing our kids. There was about 3 years ago now, we were up for a national award. The National Summer Learning Association has an Excellence in Summer Learning Award that's given to just 4 programs nationally each year. And we were in the running. And the first thing we had to do was answer a 50-page questionnaire. Okay, how do you treat kids this way, and what do you do in this situation, and what's your philosophy, and what are your principles? And it was amazing, and we got through it. We made the cut, and the next phase was that I had to be interviewed by 6 educators from across the country. And I remember thinking, if I just don't blow this, if I could just do this okay and get past this, we're going to win this, because the final part of the selection process was a site visit. And I understood that if they come and they see our kids, you know, there won't be much more to say. And I did survive my part, and they did come. And in the write-up for the award, there was one beautiful line that said, "When we entered the building, the love was palpable." And, you know, and I always take that with me to, like, okay, that's the standard. What does it feel like, you know, when you're with your kids? Does it feel that way? Mm-hmm. So I'm really curious to know, I know you've come, you know, several times. I'm really curious to know about your experience and did it change, you know, from the first time to the second time? But just, you know, just your general thoughts about, you know, just being there, you know, with the kids.
From the minute that you walk in the door, your quote is correct. You feel energy and you feel love. But the magic really happens when you're in that auditorium and you and the other members of the leadership and the student leadership team are up in front of those students. And the energy that comes from those students when you're doing that opening morning session or talking about the program in the small groups, it really it captures a visitor's heart. I mean, you want to be in that program. You want to sit there all day and find out what the rest of the day is going to be like, not just what's happening magically in front of you from these students shouting out, dancing, getting engaged, throwing out recognitions to each other. It's so exciting to see that. And then when you go into the small groups and you have a chance to listen to what it really means to those students, what they have to share with you, that's even more exciting to hear them tell their own stories.
Yeah, I think, you know, I think that for us, what's really powerful is when you talk about them telling their own stories, they've come to include in those stories, in their life stories, they've come to include the messaging that we've tried to get across to them. And the messaging is simple. As you know, the message is that in the Math Corps, kindness rules and caring rules, and I just got, if you don't mind, I just got an email this morning from one of our kids who's now in college at Wayne State. So it's a beautiful, journey for her, starting off as a little kid in the Math Corps and now a freshman in college. And she wrote this email. Good morning, Professor Kahn. I just want to say thank you in capital letters for making that decision in 1992 to start the Math Corps. You and Mr. Bohm's thought to create this program has served its purpose in showing me how to really teach, which is demonstrating love, kindness, and courage to the entire world around me. I wouldn't want to spend my summers doing anything else. Okay, that just made my day.
Gives you goosebumps, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I wanted to share it with you because, in a real sense, you're part of this now. And there's no escape, but you're part of this. And, and General Motors has been part of this, for several years now. And I don't mean, my mother taught me better than to, be conceited or anything. And I don't mean it this way, but it's a beautiful thing to, to watch, to see kids come together to care about one another. And, in fact, I think, a lot of people in the program, when asked, so what's the Math Corps about? Their answer has come to be, it's about kids caring about kids. And if you get that right, like you said, that holistic approach, if you get that right, the math comes easy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, that's not a big deal. The kids are, they're beautiful, they're bright, they're fine. But to get that right, I'm wondering, in terms of that holistic approach, and getting back to General Motors and all that they're about. I'm wondering, are there qualities in particular that you want to see developed in kids? Whether it's the Math Corps or any other program, that you hope for. Whether it's programs or whether it's school, whether it's coming through, a K-12 education and a college education, if that's, appropriate for a kid. I'm just wondering if there are things that General Motors looks for in kids as they grow up. And then, of course, we'd be interested in understanding if we're meeting those marks.
Well, for us, when we look at investment in programs, we also look at, it's a partnership to us. It's not just a grant funding, write a check and not show up. We really see things as partners. And whether that partnership means just in working with you on the development of the program and understanding how we can look at measurable results to see that those are happening, which Math Corps does and can demonstrate and is very good at sharing that to us. And that's a value to us as a funder. But we also look at ways at which we can engage people. How is a program using the human capital that it has to engage and change and impact lives? Whether that's just the volunteers you pull into the program or that's volunteers that we can lean into and support on a program. So when we look for a new partnership, we really look at the whole package. And Math Corps comes to us not only engaging people, engaging community, but it also has the fundamentals of how to measure the success and how to demonstrate real impact. And that's what we want to do, is we want to have impact. We don't want to just write a check and walk away. We want to work together to have impact and show that we're actually making a difference, and that together we can continue to make that difference.
Yeah, and in terms of making that difference, I think you might know that we've been able to secure a National Science Foundation grant We're in our last year, and the charge of that grant is actually to take the Math Corps across the country. And we are in Cleveland and Philadelphia, Utica, New York, and we're really excited. This summer we'll be going to Atlanta. Spelman College is joining the network. And we just contacted by Portland State in Oregon, and their interest is from the American Indian Teaching Project. And so
Wonderful.
we'll be working with an entirely new population of kids, Native American kids in Oregon, and that's incredibly exciting.
That's interesting, because I was just talking with our Native American population, an individual on the Michigan Community Service Commission from Northern Michigan, because there's, their school populations are very heavy on Native Americans in the Upper Peninsula.
Yeah, but the reason I brought up the NSF grant was that part of the grant, a large part of the grant, was evaluation and research. So the National Science Foundation, of course, is not a foundation, and it's not about like, oh, you've got a nice program that does good things for kids. Okay, here's a grant. It's like, no, where's the science? We want to learn. We want to come to understand things from this. Where's your research? And so we underwent an evaluation from Mathematical Policy Research. And as you talk about GM wanting to make a difference in the lives of children, what came out of that research was that participation in the Math Corps significantly increases the chances for college enrollment, with large effect, as they say in statistics. And that the greater the number of years participating in the Math Corps, the more likely you are to graduate college as well. And all that means, we understand all the studies that show that higher education levels impact everything from from health, mitigating health disparities and economic disparities, criminal justice outcomes. So that was exciting to hear. I do want to ask you, I know that General Motors is among the millions of things that it does for the community. I know that it has an interest in neighborhoods. So I know we've talked about the Cody Rouge neighborhood that General Motors has been involved with. And we've talked about, maybe the Math Corps playing a role there. But can you just talk about where you are and where General Motors is, as of now with Cody Rouge?
Well, Cody Rouge is a collaborative partnership that we entered into with the Skillman Foundation, DTE, Quicken, and Rock Financial, and then also now with Trinity Health Systems. And we've really focused in on the Cody Rouge neighborhood over the last 5 years to lean in not only on education, but on the surrounding neighborhoods and communities to work together in our collective spaces and backgrounds and knowledges, and bringing programs that we may already have created or create additional programs to bring into that neighborhood. All the while listening to what the neighborhood wanted to see in their community, which it's been rather exciting because now the city has also brought in this child-focused neighborhood plan that we were able to kind of collaborate on bringing that idea to that neighborhood. And it's in development, and you're starting to see the city look at how to work along that Joy Road corridor. And then we're still leaning in with large volunteer opportunities in the summer, although this year with COVID, it was really impacted. And so we plan to make up and go back next year, and really work in the schools, to be very engaged with Detroit Public School Systems on curriculum, supporting the curriculum that's in there. So it all starts to come together. And I think Cody was the starting point for us, Steve, with the conversation with you about what more could we bring into that Cody Rouge neighborhood. And we really thought hard about how do we bring in and support with Math Corps. And so that really got a whole lot of ideas shaking around and moving and thinking about how we could do something creative along those lines. When years ago, when you were kind of a more Michigan focused organization, and your growth has just been amazing, and it's been so exciting to kind of hear about and see. But we're still in the Cody Rouge community. We're still actively engaged in listening and learning and working to create what they see as their vision for that neighborhood. And we're always looking at new partners and how do we bring them in and how do we engage them in that work.
Yeah, we've had a few conversations with Principal Ohan, so hopefully, we can work something out where we can, play a part in helping out.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been wonderful, Heidi. Thank you so much. And again, of course, I want to thank, GM for all they've done for our kids over the years, but you personally, it's not simply a job for you. I know that I've seen you with our kids, and I know you bring a passion to what you do, and I know you care. And I'm just so grateful that, to be a partner with you. Thank you so much.
Well, you're welcome, Steve. And it just makes my day whenever I can be out with students. They're very close to my heart to try to see that difference and the magic that happens. That's always just so exciting for me. Maybe it's coming from a family of teachers all these years, but there's a big part of me that would have loved to have been in the education field, but I was torn. So trying to make my mom proud, who was a teacher at DPS, by still getting engaged as much as possible.
Well, from where I'm sitting, your mother can't help but be proud. You've been wonderful, Heidi. Thank you so much.
You're welcome, Steve. You're welcome.